Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Paul, I'm with the Dicey Review, and tonight we're going to learn how to play the 3 to 5 player game Senators, being released by Indie Boards and Cards. Senators comes with all of the components that you see here, including 2 Senate and Market boards, 5 player screens, 50 coins in denominations of 1, 5, and 10, 54 resource cards in 3 different decks, 9 support cards, 22 event cards, 15 office cards, and 5 player token sets in the different player colors. To begin setup, place the Senate and Market boards on the table so that they form an ascending Senate track from 1 to 20. Then give each player a player screen and tokens in their chosen player color. Then each player will put one of their player markers on the 5th position of the Senate track. The stacking order isn't important for now. Then randomly determine a start player. Then shuffle each deck of the resource cards and deal 1 card of each type face down to each player. These are players' starting resources. Then place the decks above the respective Senate and Market boards next to their indicated space. Then shuffle the office cards and place them above the last Senate and Market board. Then shuffle the event cards and place them face down on the table. Give the start player 10 talents, and then give each player in clockwise order 3 more talents than the last player. After this, place the rest of the coins in the middle of the table to form the bank. There's an advanced variant that uses support cards, but it's not recommended that players use this variant on their first play. We'll look at how to incorporate these advanced cards at the end of the video. After all of this has been done, you're ready to play. The goal of Senators is to have the most Senator support at the end of the game. When a player gains or loses Senators, they move their marker up or down on the Senate track accordingly. Senators is played over a series of turns until the game end condition has been met. Beginning with the start player and then continuing clockwise, a player will complete a turn by taking the following steps. The first step of a player's turn is turning over the top card of the event deck, resolving the event, and then discarding the card. Events can have a number of different effects that will require players to take part in certain actions. For instance, this event card creates a situation where each player is allowed to make a blind bid. If after making this blind bid, the total of all players' bids exceeds 20, then the single person who has made the highest contribution will gain a Senator. If the total contribution is less than 20, the person who's made the lowest contribution will lose a Senator. The Senate Majorities card allows every player to gain 2 talents from the bank for every player that has fewer Senators than themselves. The Trial of Governors card states that all players must lose any governor cards they have. The Civil Conflict card requires all players to pay 5 talents to the bank. Any player that has a governor card doesn't have to pay anything. The New Senator card states that beginning with the current player, players have the opportunity to purchase the support of a new Senator. The current player has to pay 15 talents. If they choose to pass, the next player in clockwise order could buy one for 14, the following player for 13, etc. The offer will continue around the table, dropping by 1 talent each time until a player chooses to purchase a Senator. The final event card to highlight is the War event. The War simply states that all players can make a blind bid. Whoever bids the highest will gain a Senator. It's important to note that if the War event card is drawn, place this card in a separate discard pile to easily keep count. This is important because the 4th War card revealed will end the game. On their turn, after a player has drawn and resolved an event card, they're allowed to take 1 action. They can either take the Auction action, the Extortion action, or the Cash in action. Let's look at the first action, Auction. To take this action, players will start by turning over the top card of the Resource and Office decks. These cards are now offered for sale. Players will bid beginning with the player to the left of the player taking the action. Players are allowed to place their bid markers on any price point below the cards that they wish to buy. Then, in clockwise order, other players are allowed to also make higher bids on any cards that they want. Players are allowed to bid for all, any, or none of the cards. There's only 1 round of bidding, ending with the player to the right of the active player. The active player then has a choice for each card. They can either sell the card to the player with the highest bid for the price that they have bid, or they can buy the card by paying the high bid amount to the player who made that bid. So for instance, with this wood resource, the active player could either collect 2 coins from the pink player and then allow them to keep that card, or they could pay 2 coins to the pink player and keep the card for themselves. The same holds true for any of the other cards displayed. So in the instance of the censor, the active player could either collect 10 coins from the purple player and then give them this card, or they could pay 10 coins to keep the card for themselves. It's important to note that the active player can make this decision for each card in any order they choose. It's also important to note that after the active player has made this choice with any cards that have a bid, any cards that were not bid upon are kept by the active player for free. After this bidding is complete, all cards purchased are public and placed face up in front of the players. The next action a player could take is the Extortion Action. The active player taking the Extortion Action will first take 3 talents from the bank. The player can then make an offer to each other player for any one of their public cards. Private cards can't be extorted. The offer to another player has to be a single price, and there can't be any negotiating. The other player has to choose between either selling the card for the listed price or paying the offered amount to the player to keep their card. So for instance, the white player, if they were active, could offer to pay the pink player 5 talents for this wooden resource. The pink player then has the choice to either sell the card for the 5 talents or pay the active player 5 talents for the ability to keep their card. If the targeted card is a resource card, it becomes private, and whichever player bought the card or kept it now turns it face down as a private resource. If the targeted card was an office or a support card, that card will remain public. Offers have to be made in clockwise order, starting with the player to the left of the active player, and each offer has to be resolved before the next offer is made. The last action that a player can take is to cash in. Before the active player can take their own cash in action, every other player in clockwise order can pay the active player 5 talents and take a cash in action themselves. After each player has made this decision, the active player will take their own cash-in action. A player is allowed to take either or both of the following choices and play any office cards in any order they choose. One option is a player can sell resources to the state for money. The player is allowed to sell 1 or more sets of resources to the bank. A set consists of 3 cards, either all of the same type of resource or all of the same value. So for instance, this player could either sell this set of cloth or this set of 3 value 5 goods. The player will receive talents equal to the face value of all of the cards sold. So for instance, in this example, the player would receive 15 talents. In this example, the player would receive 21 talents. If the set is all of the same type of resource and the 3 numbers are in a consecutive order, the player will receive an additional 15 talents. So in this example, the player would receive 18 talents for the base set and an additional 15 talents for the consecutive bonus, giving them 33 total talents. The players may also buy the support of new senators during this action. The player can buy the support of as many senators as they want, paying 10 talents for each senator. So for instance, the white player could pay 30 of the 33 talents they just gained in our example to move up 3 spaces on the senator track. It's also important to note that players are allowed to play office cards during this action as well, resolving the effect listed on the office card. The game will end immediately when the 4th war card is revealed. The war will not be resolved, and the winner is the player with the most senators. If there's a tie, the player with the most remaining money will win. There's no second place. If a player runs out of money during the game, for any reason, whether this be to pay a debt or to bid for an action, they can take 5 talents from the bank and lose the support of 1 senator. If a player loses their last senator, they're out of the game. It's important to note that when actually playing the game, money is always kept private and hidden behind a player's screen. Cards can either be public and face up, or private and kept face down. Office and support cards are always public. Now that we've learned how to play the basic game, let's look at the office cards in more detail and the support cards in more detail. There are 6 governors in the game, 1 for each province and resource type. Each governor can be played as if it were a wild resource value of the chosen resource. So for instance, the governor of Gaul could be played as a meat resource of any value from 1 to 9. The governors also give the benefit of granting immunity during a civil conflict. All governors are immediately discarded if the trial of governors is drawn. A player who plays a consul on a turn can purchase any number of senators during that turn for 7 talents instead of the usual 10 talents. Censors will allow players to steal 1 senator from another player that has more senators. The targeted player will lose a senator and the active player will gain 1. A player that has equal or fewer senators can't be targeted. And finally, this card will allow a player to sell sets of any 3 cards that turn, so they don't have to be the same resource type or the same number. They just have to have 3 cards. To use the support cards during the game, randomly deal out as many support cards as there are players, and then starting with the player to the right of the start player, and then continuing counterclockwise, have everyone choose 1 card and place it face up in front of them. We won't go over each support card in detail. Each support card will give players an ongoing benefit that will help them throughout the game. Support cards are always public even after extortions. There's no limit to how many a player can hold, and the benefits are continuous, and they're not played or discarded like office cards. Alright everyone, that was our video. Thanks so much for watching. We hope that it was helpful and we hope that it was informative. If you still have any questions about how to play the game, please comment below or email us directly at thedicey@gmail.com. If you'd like to hear more from the Dicey Review, you can check out the Dicey Review podcast. It can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, TuneIn, pretty much any podcasting app. You can read our written reviews at thediceyreview.com and make sure and connect with us on social media or by visiting our Board Game Geek Guild. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.